Thank you, Mr. President Trump, Your Majesty. I just want to say on your behalf that I'm a Republican and I believe you when you say that the election was stolen from you and that I believe that you didn't commit tax fraud and that you didn't commit business fraud and that you didn't embezzle millions of dollars from your MAGA fools or scam your university students' dollars. I believe that, and I believe that you didn't cheat on me, your wife, with a porn star and a Playboy model, and that you didn't pay the porn star $130, 000 to make sure she didn't tell anyone about it right before the 2016 election, and that you didn't sexually assault a woman in the dressing room of a department store, and that you didn't conspire to steal the 2020 election by creating false slates of electors, and that you were not compliant in the attempted hanging of your vice president, and that duck-looking lawyer Alina means nothing to you, and you don't think of Ivanka in a how's your father way, and that you really didn't enter the Miss USA changing room where girls as young as 15 years old were undressed. And I believe you, I don't believe that you stole classified documents, hid them in the bathroom, and obstructed attempts to get them back by the government. I don't believe it for one sec you interfere in an election in 2020 and encourage Russia to help you win the 2016 election. I don't believe that, and I believe you did not actively undermine any time. I don't believe it, and that you did not believe the shit Marjorie Taylor and Fox say about January 6th, and install yourself as an unelected dictator, and I don't believe that you spew deranged conspiracy theories and take Uncle Dim Scott serious. Oh, and please don't let Barron turn into a shitty, jacked, low IQ anything for clout grifter like Don Jr. I know you're a convicted criminal. I will always say any old bullshit to anyone, anywhere, just for you, or Elon, anytime. You'll always be my Trudeau to your Ivanka.
I know this happened a few days ago, even a couple of weeks ago, back in when the hush money case was going on. But we've got to share this with you because it's very telling. It's George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, and just talking about the Karen McDougal interview with Anderson Cooper on CNN. Karen McDougal, along with Stormy Daniels, was somebody who was involved with Don Shitsy Pantsy whilst married to Melania Trump. It's not so much that, it's more about it gives you so much of an insight into the type of person Trump is, an insight into Ivanka Trump, and for all of these interviews that he does, whether it was with Dr. Phil recently, what a joke that was. I don't really get that. All of this stuff you see on social media, all of the talking heads that run to cable news, all of those people fluffing his backside left, right and centre, he's worried. And I would say he is petrified. Is it July the 11th when judgment is handed down for the hush money case? He is petrified of jail. You almost would think, I could be wrong on this, feel free to give your thoughts in the comment section. You almost think the only reason he wants to actually run to be president of the United States of America is because that's the only way he is guaranteed he'll never go to jail. Just wonder what your thoughts are. Have a listen to George Conway and co, and then comment section, all yours.
We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump, worshiping as a convicted felon.
Well, he is a convicted felon.
Well, yes, that was George Floyd.
Considering the fact that he is your orange Jesus and he just happens to be convicted of 34 counts of felonies, absolutely you are worshiping him. We all know how y'all get down about your orange Jesus.
I stand corrected, by the way. There used to be the story that the former loser guy, 34 felonies and all that sort of stuff, was the person who employed the best people. Not true. That particular vocation goes to Fox News. They had Nancy, what's her name? What is her name? Maybe it's Tequila Night at Fox.
And perjury is a serious crime, and we ought to refer charges over their lies to Congress. There ought to be consequences. The American people ought to know the truth, and this is one way to get them the truth.
I remember the time when randomly Hannity and Sanity Collaborative's producer was stalking us. He really was. I have no idea why. And I'll repeat what I said then. How is it that a sack of horse manure ever is able to get in front of a TV camera or microphone and just come up with the garbage that Hannity insanity calamity does. I mean, he gets Trump on. I don't know how many hours of watch time Trump and Hannity have sat down in front of each other. It's never delivered anything apart from pure sorry. There's no other word. S-H-I-T. This is meant to be a broadcast. Okay.
Didn't you let the FBI in here and with no problems? Didn't they go into the room where most of the documents?
I let them go in.
And didn't they call back 2 days later and say, would you put a padlock on that?
No, they said, would you put a second padlock? Because I had a padlock.
And you did. And my next question is, if they wanted to come back, would you have let them back?
Sure. They had no problem.
And if they wanted to take the documents, would you have let them?
I would have let them, even though I didn't have to, because you have the Presidential Records Act, which says very specifically it's up to the president. It's all up.
Why didn't
the New York...
Didn't you let the FBI in here and with no problems? Didn't they go into the room where most of the documents?
I let them go in.
And didn't they call back 2 days later and say, would you put a padlock on that?
No, they said, would you put a second padlock? Because I had a padlock.
And you did. And my next question is, if they wanted to come back, would you have let them back?
Sure. They had no problem.
And if they wanted to take the documents, would you have let them?
I would have let them, even though I didn't have to, because you have the Presidential Records Act, which says very specifically it's up to the president. It's all up.
Why didn't
the New York...
What do you say about Merrick Garland?
I'm disappointed in him. He was very liberal, known as being very liberal, but I always looked upon him as being a very legitimate person. And I'm very disappointed that he's allowed this all to happen, a raid of Mar-a-Lago. They could have had whatever they wanted. You understand that?
Didn't you let the FBI...
Wheel of Fortune with Marjorie Taylor Greene's bestie. Just to give you an example of how long the guy has been hosting the show, do you want to know who was being interviewed right back in the day, on the same day he hosted his first Wheel of Fortune? It's weird. Another friend of Marjorie Grader, close.
For some people, the ultimate goal in life
And perjury is a serious
has been
crime,
becoming the
and we ought to
president of the
refer
United
charges
States.
over
Would
their
you
lives
like
to
to be the
Congress.
president
There
of
ought
the
to be
United States?
consequences.
I really
The
don't believe
American
I would,
people ought to
but
know
I
the
would
truth,
like
and
to
this
see
is one way to
somebody
get them the
as the
truth.
president who could do the job, and there are very capable people in this country.
Why wouldn't you dedicate yourself to public service?
Because I think it's a very mean life. I would love and I would dedicate my life to this country, but I see it as being a mean life, and I also see it that somebody with strong views and somebody with the kind of views that are maybe a little bit unpopular, which may be right, but may be unpopular, wouldn't necessarily have a chance of getting elected against somebody with no great brain but a big smile.
Couple of pictures to clear up. First of all, can I show you this screen grab? This is Judge Jeanine Weinbox, more commonly known as Judge Jeanine, the lady from Fox News. She started pushing this garbage that President Biden, during the time he was at the D-Day commemoration, alongside President Macron, was looking for an invisible chair. Absolutely taken out of context. It was just garbage. The split second that the RNC was pushing on social media, anybody with a brain could have seen it was just made up rubbish. Judge Jeanine Pirro doesn't have a brain, put this out, and then deleted it. It's how dumb she is. She really thinks that you put something out on social media and when you delete it, we don't see it. Yes, we do. FOS.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
And the other thing, I said at the time, all of these so-called, Mr. Felioni, we're calling him Don Shitsy Panty, randomly drops into restaurants and buys pizza or whatever it is and meets people. It's garbage. It's all set up. You remember Chick-fil-A where she... a random person just happened to see Trump and was bowing down saying how wonderful he is. Weirdly, she's now spending more social time, her and her cronies, with a former guy in Mar-a-Lago or somewhere like that. And he's actually been photographed more with her than he has with Melania Trump. I had to watch this a few times. Kimberly Guilfoyle reacted to the charges of daddy-in-law being read out. It's brilliant.
Okay.
It's being read at the moment. What is that?
It look.
In a few minutes.
Okay.
It's being read
It look.
in a few minutes.
Okay. Okay. So
What is that?
the breaking news that has come in and that we're reading across the breaking news that has come in and that we're reading across the news wires is guilty verdict count 2 count 1 guilty verdict count 2 so 3 guilty verdict Count 4, count 5, 3 and 4. Count 5, guilty verdict. Guilty verdict. Count 6. Count 6. Guilty verdict. Count 7, guilty verdict. Count 7, guilty verdict. Count 8, guilty verdict. Count 8, guilty verdict. Count 9, guilty verdict. Count 9, guilty verdict. Count 10, guilty verdict. Count 10, guilty verdict. Count 11, guilty verdict. Count 11, guilty verdict. Count 12, guilty verdict. Count 12, guilty verdict. Count 13, a guilty verdict as well. Count 13, a guilty verdict as well. Count 14, a guilty verdict. Count 14, a guilty verdict. Okay. Count 15, guilty verdict as well. So this is count 15, guilty verdict as well. So this is breaking news. The case of New York versus Donald J. Trump. The jury has voted unanimously, finding him guilty on all charged counts. Your reaction, Jesse?
Inside Donald Trump's prison cell, the surroundings are like any other small, enclosed space. The walls are gray concrete, and a narrow cot with a thin mattress is the only piece of furniture. A tiny metal sink and toilet combo sit in one corner, while a small barred window allows a sliver of natural light to filter in. The sound of clanking bars echoes through the air as guards patrol the hallway outside.
What if President Trump is 76 years old? He will die in federal prison.
Trump spends his days pacing the limited floor space. The once powerful man now finds himself in a place of confinement.
I'm no mathematician. I'm really not. I'm not particularly good at accountants and that sort of thing. But even I can work out, mysteriously or miraculously, being given $4 million worth of money, goods, gifts and freebies and all that sort of stuff when you're on the Supreme Court, you're a SCOTUS, you're a Supreme Justice, just stinks. It really does. And just imagine for one moment it wasn't Clarence Thomas we're talking about. Just imagine for one moment if it was Ketanji Brown Jackson, a Democrat. Could you imagine the uproar? But with this guy, what happened to the swamp? Does anybody care to tell me? Because this guy's the whole river.
The Supremes famously sang, "Love don't come easy. It's just a game of give and take." And that is now the question that is facing Supreme Court justices. Just how much can they take before it starts influencing what they're giving? Tonight, the financial disclosure forms that are just out from the justices reveal a trove of luxury gifts and six-figure book deal payments and a Beyonce ticket or two. But really, all eyes are on Justice Clarence Thomas. He amended his disclosure form from 2019 with two new additions that he says were, quote, inadvertently admitted at the time of the filing. Now, we should note, they were only brought to light publicly because of a ProPublica investigation. The first was a trip to Bali that was paid for by a GOP mega donor, Harlan Crow, and his wife. Thomas also then disclosed a trip paid for by the Crows to a private club in Monterey, California. That same month, he did not place a value on either trip in the disclosure form because it's not required, but the watchdog group Fix the Court said that over the last 20 years, when it comes to both the disclosed and undisclosed gifts, Clarence Thomas is really in a league of his own. Thomas has reportedly received 103 gifts amounting to $2.4 million in value. And it's not even close. Next in line is Justice Antonin Scalia, and he still accepted $2.2 million fewer than Thomas. Joining me now is Justice Correspondent for The Nation and host of their new podcast, Contempt of Court, Elie Mystal, and also with us, the former Trump attorney, Tim Parlatore. Elie, inadvertently omitted. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, so once again, we caught Clarence Thomas in a lie, because when these allegations, when these gifts first came out, were first reported by ProPublica, Thomas said that he was not required to report them on his disclosure form. Now he's saying not reporting them was an inadvertent omission. Well, which one is it, Clarence? And frankly, it doesn't matter which one it is, because there will be no punishment. And so while we can talk about all of these gifts, the $2.4 million, the money that he is raking in, the important thing to remember is that Congress refuses to do anything to stop these people. Congress will not pass ethics legislation. I do not know why Republicans in Congress oppose minimal basic ethics requirements for the Supreme Court. But they do, and so we don't have them, and so nothing, squadoosh, is the number that is going to happen in terms of consequences for Clarence Thomas's corruption and lies.
Members of Congress's staffers, Tim, are subject to more stringent ethical requirements, apparently, than the Supreme Court of the United States. How could that be? And to Ellie's point, I mean, is this not now crying out for Congress to act if they really care at all about preserving even just the appearance of impartiality of the court?
Oh, I agree with Ellie completely on this. You know, this is something that, you know, congressional staffers you mentioned. If you look at the executive branch, I've represented several senior executive branch officials with investigations from the Office of Government Ethics. You know, military officers are only allowed to accept gifts up to $20. NYPD cops, they get written up if they take a free cup of coffee. You know, there are rules in place for federal judges that limit the gift that they can get at $50, but it specifically exempts the Supreme Court. In the states, you know, it can be even worse. I once had a state Supreme Court justice that I was in front of that during the case had a third party come to me and ask for a campaign contribution for that judge. Any type of, you know, thing where they're taking these large gifts, it's an appearance of impropriety. It's something that does, in my opinion, it degrades, you know, the image of impartiality. And I think that I agree with Ellie. This is something that the Congress should act and try and put in some reasonable regulations on.
Good morning. Happy Thursday. Those headphones are enormous on you. Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman representing Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, running for the Republican nomination in the 4th Congressional District, joins me in studio. And
Lauren Boebert has done a radio interview. It's probably not the first. It's on K something or other. Sorry, I should know the name of the radio station, but it's irrelevant because for the simple reason it is... Well, they started off by playing the Beetlejuice theme tune. And I'm thinking, this is going somewhere. And then it just turned into another one of these real... sycophantic, well, maybe the guy was trying. I don't know. Maybe he has a boss that says you've got to go along with the narrative. We like Lauren Boebert. We'll pick it up halfway along the line, but it's a bit vomit-inducing. It really is, because I'm thinking this is why we have some of the politicians we do have, because they're not being held account. They're just not. You know, Lauren Boebert, as far as I know, has never actually done one live, serious, real analysis of her political portfolio of thoughts, whatever it is she stands for. She's never been tackled on it. This is everything, in my opinion, that is wrong, and why we end up with some really bad, you can use the word dumb, you can use the word low IQ, just politicians. And the funniest thing is, he actually mentions what he thinks are people who are known for the wrong reasons, puts Marjorie Taylor Greene in that line, and then at the same, well, just have a listen. But could I just tell KW, whatever the radio station is, you don't need to put your tongue, your nose, right up the anal passage of any clown that turns up in front of a microphone. You don't.
Let's start with...
How about the intro music? Are you kidding me?
What?
Oh, my goodness.
That's Producer Dragon. That's Producer Dragon. Was that Beetlejuice music?
Sure was, yeah. Of course it was.
Of course it was.
It's
all right.
showtime. Let's go.
I'm not going there. I'll let other people ask those questions. A lot of times when I think of famous members of Congress who aren't Speaker of the House, and I think of people like Rashida Tlaib and AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're famous for all the wrong reasons, and I can't stand any of them. And I like you. I've known you a little bit for a long time. I like you a lot as a person. I think you're genuine and funny. But you're famous. And I don't know that it's good for a member of Congress to be famous. And I don't know that you're famous for reasons that you want to be famous. How do you think about that? And do you wish you were a little bit less in the spotlight?
Well, okay, there's a lot of questions there and a lot to unpack. So, I mean, do I wish I was less in the spotlight? Yes and no, right? I mean, I don't have personal moments. I wish I was less on infrared camera. That would be great. But, you know, I mean, there are those aspects. I mean, I would like to go to dinner in Fort Collins with my boys and not have random people come up and video us, you know. So I mean, that kind of stuff bothers me. But also, if I wasn't who I am and as loud as I am and in this spotlight, then I don't believe that I would be as effective, because in Congress, when I speak, I mean, people listen.
I just want to take a few seconds to respond. That was great. You know, we are addressed as MAGA extremists, extreme MAGA Republicans. And I would like to make just a clarification point. It's ultra MAGA. That's what we prefer. Yes. And
you all are allowing delinquent employees to sit on their sofas at home instead of actually getting to work and doing their jobs. This is absolutely unacceptable.
So our employees are working whether they are in the office or at home, and they are.
Are you monitoring the work that they are doing from home on a regular basis?
Yes, we are.
Every employee, do you have the numbers of the hours that are submitted? Are you counting how many times they're logging into their computers and responding to casework?
So our employees are subject to the same performance management processes and oversight they are whether they're teleworking or working in an office. And we have systems in place that our managers use to schedule, assign, and track workloads. And that includes individual employee workloads in many cases. So real-time understanding of what actions are being processed at any particular given time. Additionally, our employees are required to be accessible to their supervisors, clients, colleagues, and external parties during work hours via a variety of means, including instant messaging, video platforms, and telephone. They are connected to the workplace, whether they are in the office or at the home.
Then why is the backlogs for Social Security applicants increased from 41,000 to 107,000?
Because we've been historically underfunded for a number of years now.
I don't think you're underfunded. You're funded at the Nancy Pelosi levels. At the Democrat levels, we just continued that same funding.
So I would say
at pandemic level spending.
So I would say we have an increase of over 8 million beneficiaries over the last 10 years. At the same time, we experienced our lowest work staffing levels at the end of FY22. That's a math problem. I mean, that is a problem. If you have those workloads, increasing, and you don't have the staff to take care of those workloads, you're going to have the backlogs that you're talking about, Representative.